Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am the Twisted Jedi, and we just finished the Mandalorian panel from Star Wars Celebration. Obviously they were live streaming that, so what I'm going to do is I've got my notes here from the panel. I'm going to be reading them all off to you from my phone, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm looking at. But there was a lot to go over, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit and give you guys anything that sort of happened in the panel, anything they gave away, and if you guys didn't get the chance to watch it, hopefully this brings you up to speed. So the first thing that happened was they had Kathleen Kennedy come out on stage, and she talked about sort of how they got started with The Mandalorian. She introduced Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, who she had with her, and they're obviously going to be collaborating on this TV series that's going to be on Disney Plus later this year. And she kind of spoke for 2 minutes and then left, which was probably a better thing, because I think it was better off leaving the panel in the hands of Dave and Jon. So for those of you that don't know, Dave Filoni has been pretty much the second in charge behind George Lucas. He's the next creative mind. He's done Clone Wars, he's done Rebels, and now he's finally getting a live action series. So this is going to be cool. Jon Favreau actually played Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars series, if you did not know that already. So he's a big Star Wars guy. He loves Mandalorians, and he definitely is really excited. He's actually the one that pitched this idea. So this is pretty much his baby. It's his whole TV series. It was all his idea, and Dave Filoni's been helping him out. So it's very cool. They sat down on the panel and they just started off. They introduced some of the characters that we're going to get. So Pedro Pascal is going to be the Mandalorian himself. His character is going to be, you know, a bounty hunter, again, sort of similar to that Boba Fett type of character. And he's going to be hired by another character that we'll talk about in just a minute. But Pedro didn't say too much on his character. He kind of just mentioned that he's a bit of a badass. He has some questionable moral character. So again, like you guys can tell, that similar sort of Boba Fett feel. Mandalorians are always pretty badass, no matter like where they come from or who they are. So I think that's definitely something they're going to look to go into. In terms of like the type of story that it's going to be, they said they drew on inspirations from samurai films and old westerns, so it's going to have that kind of western feel to it, you know, the fastest gun type thing, bounty hunters and all that kind of jazz as well. So it's going to be quite interesting. The next thing that they did was that they introduced Gina Carano. Now I'm pretty sure she's the chick from Fast and the Furious, don't quote me on that, but I think she was in one of the Fast and Furious movies where she had a fight scene against Ronda Rousey. Can't remember 100%, but it's possible that that was her. She was in some of the later ones with The Rock in them as well. I don't know if that's her, but it definitely looks like her. Anyways, but she plays a character called Cara Dune, who we didn't know before this panel. She's going to be an ex-rebel shock trooper. That's one thing we did find out. And she's a bit of a loner character. So other than that, they didn't really give a whole lot away on her character either. She just spoke briefly for like 2 minutes about it. And then kind of went back to Jon to introduce the next character. So the next character is being played by Carl Weathers, and if you don't know him, the easiest way to understand who he is, if you've ever seen Happy Gilmore, he played Chubbs Peterson. So yeah, that guy, he's hilarious. I was like, I know him from somewhere, and I had to Google search it, but he's a really good actor. Now, he's going to be playing a character called Grief Karga, or Marga. They referred to him as both in the panel. I don't know which one of them messed it up. I think it was Jon or Dave that said Karga, and then he said Marga. Carl Weathers said Marga. So not sure which one it is. If you guys know the definite answer, drop it down in the comments below, because I'm not 100% sure, really. It could be either. I don't know if they confirmed which one it was at the end. So, but he's going to be playing the head of a bounty hunter guild. So he's in charge of, you know, hiring bounty hunters to bring people in, and obviously ends up hiring the Mandalorian to get the job done. He's the guy, they said that he's the guy they bring in when they have a difficult request and they need someone to just bring him in. So that's who he's going to be playing. Kind of a cool character if you essentially think about it. He's like the older, not like leader, but he's like the guild master, guild leader. I don't know how to describe it. He's like that head character where he just hires people under him to bring others in. So he's going to be quite cool to see how he goes as well. The next thing that they did was that they showed off some like footage from behind the scenes, but they kind of blacked out all the people watching the live stream from home, which was a little bit silly. I was kind of frustrated at the time too, but luckily though, big shout out to my man Fish in the Discord server. Thank you for sending through the 1-minute teaser trailer that they showed at Star Wars Celebration of The Mandalorian. So basically what they showed off was a couple of fight scenes. They showed the Mandalorian making some deals with people, shaking some hands, you know, doing the usual bounty hunter business. They also showed the Empire still trying to assume control, so they're still hanging around, even though this is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. there's still some Imperials floating around, and they're trying to assume control of, like, I guess whatever town that they're in. And we get to see a really cool shot of an Imperial flame trooper. So he's got the typical white bucket, but it's got like red markings down the middle, kind of similar or reminiscent of the shock trooper, but with different markings on the armor. And he's got a huge flamethrower, and you see him just like trying to wipe out this town with the flamethrower. So really cool shot. And then we actually get to see the Mandalorian fighting some stormtroopers as well. He uses the end of the blaster as an electro staff as well, which looks really cool. You see him electrocuting someone. Pretty sure that was the end of it, and that's what it was. And then we get some really cool footage of a couple of other bounty hunters, including IG-88, and a little snippet of what looked to be Forlom. I'm not 100% sure if that was him. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, if it was him, if you've seen it, if that was definitely him, but I'm not sure. But it was definitely IG-88, and we got some sick action of him like spinning around shooting people. It was pretty hectic and really impressive, actually. So what they did was they showed some behind the scenes filming stuff, like on set, different shots of the Mandalorian armor, Pedro getting suited up, some other different snippets of different things. They didn't give a whole lot away, and that was kind of the theme of the whole panel, was they were trying not to give much away. So they did mention, though, it's going to be set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So there was not really any gaps filled of, you know, where the Mandalorians were during the original trilogy, or what happened, or anything like that. So he now is going to get this sort of gaps filled in with the storyline and the timeline of where the Mandalorian's been and what he's doing. So it's going to have an underworld style to it, obviously with bounty hunters and things like that. That's what you're going to go for. And being a Western style, again, you want it to be that kind of underworld feel. So that's really good as well. But yeah, like I said, they didn't give too much away. They were trying not to spoil anything. Even the actors that were talking, they were kind of like looking at Dave and John like, can I say this? Can I not say this? Like, how much can I give away here? What can I do? It was a little bit disorganized compared to some of the other panels, but it was still good nonetheless. And there was a decent amount of information in there. But I would have loved to have seen a little bit more, or be found out a little bit more of the story or the characters. So the next thing they spoke about was that they actually got the 501st in. They didn't have enough Stormtrooper outfits on set, and instead of like making more or whatever, they put a call out to the 501st, and they actually got a bunch of them to show up, and they used them in the filming for The Mandalorian. So that's really cool that the people that are actually filming this have put out a request to some fans, essentially, to make high-end replica costumes, like 1-to-1 of the original movies. They put a request out, they showed up, and they used them in the actual filming for The Mandalorian. So that's really cool that they can do that, and I'm sure it's a real good kick for those guys in the 501st to actually say that they've been in Star Wars now. So that's quite cool as well. The other thing they touched on was the Mandalorian ship that he's going to be flying around. It's going to be called the Razor Crest. And it's going to be a type of gunship. I can't remember exactly what type they said it was, but it does look quite cool, and it's got a very cool name. If you said to me like the ship's called the Razor Crest, I think that's a pretty good name for it. And I'm sure you guys probably agree. But what they did was they went to ILM. They showed some behind the scenes footage from ILM in how they designed the Razor Crest and like making the miniature of it. They went down into the basement and they pretty much showed it getting filmed, and how they did the original way of doing it. Like when the original trilogy came out, they used like miniature models as opposed to using it all on computer generated stuff. They used miniatures and actually filmed them like going around. So they showed some footage of that too, which was quite cool to see that they were still doing that, and it's the way that they used to do it back in the day when they were filming the originals. So it's cool that they still use that as opposed to using updated technology, and it looks just as good. Like they showed some snippets of it on screen and how it would look, you know, when it's being projected, and it looked really good. So that was a cool touch as well. They spoke a little bit about George Lucas actually showing up to help them out. He was on set a few times and in the editing room and helping them kind of get things together and piece things. And he also helped them collaborate with a little bit of story and background history in terms of The Mandalorian and, you know, things that happened in Star Wars and different timelines and stuff like that where stuff lined up. So it was cool to see George Lucas actually step in and touch on this as well. We know that he doesn't really get too much involvement at the moment, so it's nice to see him touching in on The Mandalorian. Like I mentioned before, the characters didn't really give anything away. The actors didn't give anything away. They had their hands tied for the most of it. They couldn't say a lot at all. That was kind of the theme for the whole panel. The only other thing that they touched on was that Pedro's character is going to be very Clint Eastwood-ish. They want him to be that like Western kind of badass character. So I'm not sure how much more we're going to get on this before it releases at the end of the year, but I'll definitely be sure to cover it if anything else comes out. the last thing that they did at the panel was that they announced that everyone that was there viewing the panel was going to get a new poster for The Mandalorian. So I'm going to try and get a photo of it if I can. I'll post it up here. If there's nothing there right now on the screen, there's probably no image out there for me to grab. So if I can, I'll get it up there so you guys can check it out. But I definitely need to get one for myself if possible to go right up there with that Boba Fett one that's in the background. So if you guys know where I can grab one, or if you manage to get an extra one from Celebration or anything, I will be more than happy to pay for shipping for that if you guys want to send it out to me. But I definitely want to get one for sure. So that was pretty much everything that they talked about. I don't know what the next step is, or, you know, sort of when we can expect more news or more character announcements or anything like that. So I will definitely be looking into it more and more as I go through. I didn't really expect too much from The Mandalorian previously, but now after watching the panel, I think I've got a little bit more interest in where it's going and the direction. So I think John and Dave are going to do a really good job. Both really good creative Star Wars minds, and they've got a good, you know, background knowledge in terms of the Star Wars universe. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm going to keep covering it. So if you want to see more news updates and things like that in terms of The Mandalorian, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so you can stay up to date with everything that comes out with The Mandalorian. Anyways, I'm going to get a little bit of a nap now because it's 3 a.m. We've got a couple of hours until the Clone Wars panel, so I'm going to be getting up for that as well, and I'll put some more info out on the channel as soon as they finish with that Clone Wars panel as well. So stay tuned for that. In a couple of hours' time, I'll have another video out. I appreciate all of you tuning in for this. Let me know if you're excited for The Mandalorian down in the comments, and leave a thumbs up on the video if you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry it was a little bit scrappy. I'm just going straight off the panel. Went straight into recording. I don't normally do face cam or anything like that, but I thought for this one, I'd just jump in and do it straight away. So appreciate all of you guys watching. I will see you in the next one, and may the Force be with you always.
The Sith are all powerful. You are no match for me.